Hello, welcome to Meet the Industry Leaders at SAP. I'm Shailendra and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for joining us. I hope you all are safe. For you to view this episode and other sessions that I run on emerging technologies live, I would request you to follow me so you can be alerted when a live session is on. So please press the follow button or the subscribe button as you go. I have a very special guest today, and he's been awake at midnight his time. So, my guest today is Carl Kehres from the US. Carl is the general manager for SAP's global telco practice. During his 20 plus years with SAP, Carl has managed North America's architecture, North American sales, and global strategy teams, driving solutions and value for the telecommunications, media, and entertainment industries. Prior to joining SAP, he worked at Convergys as a program director with the line of business responsibilities for services provided to AT&T business services, AT&T Canada, now part of MTS Allstream and Rogers. So please be ready with your questions and put them into the comment sections. So without any further ado, let me bring in Carl, General Manager for SAP's Global Telco Practice. Hi, Carl.
Hi, Shailendra. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to the Meet the Industry Leaders at SAP. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Glad that you're safe. Glad I'm safe. Hope all is safe, as you said. Start there.
Thank you for taking the time out at this hour. I know it's midnight for you. Okay, can you please start briefly explaining about your career journey? I've given a bit of a brief, but it'll be good to hear from you where you started, how you reached where you are today, and let's take it from there.
Yeah, it's caused me to think, right? I've been with SAP for a long time. I've been in the industry for a long time. So where to begin and what to share. But I would start with electronic data systems is where I started out of university. I joined that company and they supported General Motors. I was actually in accounting and financial development at the time. I then went to a phone company and took a product management role at a telephone company and worked there for a few years. Went to their sister company, you mentioned Convergys. That's a company in the industry that supported billing even back when we started launching mobile telephony back in the early 80s. So long, rich history in telecom. Joined SAP 22 years ago and been happy here ever since. But really a journey of accounting, finance, into telco, and now into SAP and all that we do.
Brilliant. That's great. You know what? We've got more than 30 people watching us live at the moment. So guys, if you've got a question, please shoot it in the comment section. Okay. So what was it about the IT industry that sparked your interest to forge a career in?
Well, starting so early in life, as a young child, but I was in high school and we were spending time with the latest technology. One would think that typing was a big deal back then. Could do 40 words a minute. I was all excited. But in my senior year, we started to get into programming. And that was a whole new thing, video games. So video games back in the day, as I would say, were more, you go to a arcade, you put in a quarter and you play. And that's what got me interested in the technology, starting to understand how to create visualization experience, those kind of things, even in the early days, was something I looked at in high school. So when I went to university, I started in information systems. I had no idea what that meant. I had a friend who was in my class, this programming class, and that's what he was going into. So I tried it. I was good at math. I was logical and figured like an interesting path to start with. So that's where I went. And then I got into accounting and finance as my MBA.
So from accounting to IT, so you've got some statistics background as well? So analytics would come natural to you?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I really like to solve problems, I guess, and with information technology, all the technology is always changing, evolving, getting better. So, and how you solve that problem in the moment is the most important thing, right? Satisfy that need, help the customer with the problem they have.
Okay, good stuff. So if there are any machine learning statistics questions, you can handle it.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Great. Okay. Can you share one interesting fact about yourself that your colleagues wouldn't know?
Well, I'll share two real quick. One was connected to this video game story. I actually in high school was interested in playing one game, was Asteroids. So I played with two friends for 24 hours straight on one quarter. So again, back in the day, you got a machine, you put a quarter in, you get to play a game. The expected life cycle of that game may be 3 or 4 minutes, but we got good enough at this game. We could just keep it going. We built up enough ships, and we would keep our one game going for 23 hours and 40 minutes, I think. So anyway, that's one quick thing. The other thing, people know that I do some woodworking, but I've also moved into milling trees. So you can take a tree, cut it into a log, and slice the log, let the wood dry, and then I can make furniture from that. So I've got a couple of big saws, and it's fun to get out in the woods when we're allowed to, right, with COVID. But it's safe to be out there by yourself.
That's interesting, making your own furniture.
Yeah, from the full cycle, right, from tree to table for my daughters. So yeah, it's fun. Good
stuff. Okay, your current role and responsibilities. So what does your current role entail as the global leader for Telco at SAP?
The I guess key element of that is leadership from a thought leadership perspective, making sure that we represent SAP, our team, right? It's certainly not me. We have a small but mighty team, as I've referred to in the past. And then we have an ecosystem inside of SAP that we want to make sure we all get our message out and we communicate and engage with the industry in a way that's relevant, in a way that can be beneficial to them and us. So it's first about leading our go-to-market in the industry as a team. And then secondly, translating what the industry needs, where it's going, back into SAP, so we're prepared for the future. And that's the exciting part, because in some ways, the future we can guide and direct and support. And in other ways, we just have to hold on tight and make sure we get the best of it, right? And help as well as we can. So it's interesting dynamic of what we can control, what we can imagine, and what actually happens. So it's been fun.
Good stuff. So what is your key focus for this year in your role? Is that changed with COVID-19? So
dramatically, Shalindra. Yeah. You don't need to get me going on that topic, but I think the key is events, right? And I'll start with Mobile World Congress. I don't know if you're familiar with Mobile World Congress, but for the audience, if you know about telecom, it's 100,000 plus people get together in Barcelona every year, end of February, early March. And that's usually a big event for SAP. And we had to this year, we ended up not having that event. So for obvious reasons, for the right reasons, but we missed that event, that opportunity to engage with these executives. We usually have 400 meetings there. So a lot of interaction, a lot of deep conversation, sometimes quick conversation, but we missed those events, Sapphire as well. So adjusting to the new reality, how do we engage with customers without these opportunities, these face-to-face meetings? How do we scale out our knowledge? How do we scale out our engagement? So it's adjusting to the new reality, I guess.
Well, one thing, I was supposed to go to the Mobile World Congress this year. So I missed it. And most of my work is public speaking. Now it's significantly changed to going social and, talking to people through these kind of mediums. So things have changed, I think, for all of us. Okay, one more question around SAP, and then we'll deep dive into telcos. What is the best thing about working at SAP?
Well, I'll start with a simple, it's the people. But there's a friend of mine that gave me some advice about what you get from work. So it's what you do. So if you like what you do, right, you scale it as a rate it 1 to 10. What do you do? Do I like it? Who do you do it with? 1 to 10. How much do you get paid? 1 to 10. But it's in that order. It's who you work with, right? And how that work gets done is been very rewarding. I think I've worked at many different companies, many large companies, but SAP has certainly the brain power, the commitment to customers, but I think it's that empathy and caring for each other that may have started differently because we started as a German company. We brought in the mindset and the feelings from everyone else around the world. So it's truly a global organization. So it's just exciting to get to know people, different cultures, attitudes, thoughts, but also just that empathy that our company has. I think working for SAP has been an honor and a pleasure.
Okay, that's great. So I've got an audience question now at the back of that. So people who are working at SAP, all the people who are watching this episode, what do you think is the best thing about working at SAP? So can you put that in the comment section? And I will replay that, by the way. So if you have a comment, please tell us what is the good thing for you. You think as working at SAP? Okay. So coming back to Carl, I just have to get rid of this question for a minute, and here we go. So Carl, now coming back to telco and let's discuss about some larger telco content as well. So in the current environment, what role does telco play when digital technologies are so much important? So is it the infrastructure? Is it more than that? Can you please tell us about that?
Well, I think, and don't want to waste too much time on COVID, right? It's already a big part of our life, but to bring it to life, I guess, as to the role they play, it's an essential service, right? We all think of what are the essential services that have to get done. Those are the workers on the front lines, but telco is providing our ability to connect, right? Not just physically with a little wire, but connect as people. As you said, you've moved from speaking on stage to now engaging with the audience online, right? We have personalities. We want to engage. We want to connect with people. So I think connecting socially, connecting with work, obviously that's a big difference for telcos. All the network was built to have a lot of capacity to the business locations. Now you need to make sure you have all that capacity to the home, not just for movies, but for everything else that we're doing now with our children, our spouses. My wife's starting to do video consulting for her practice. She's a pediatric nurse practitioner, so even she's starting to use some bandwidth more than she had in the past with some video chats, video conferences. So I think this demand on the network helps us realize or makes us realize the importance of that infrastructure. So
Yep.
that's the core, right? It's amazing what telecoms have been able to deliver. The technology, the scale, so few companies now can reach billions of customers each day, and it's just amazing. So I think that's key from a work connection perspective. But I think if we think of information technology, we think of intelligent enterprise. Telecoms are starting to move into that. Mobile World Congress last year, they called that whole tagline for the event was intelligent connectivity. SAP's brand, right? Intelligent enterprise. They come together at the edge. So I think we'll get into some of these conversations as well about the future and 5G and how that might enable the telecoms of the future and what they offer.
Okay. You mentioned 5G. So what is the impact that 5G will have on our lives in the coming days? How important it is?
Yeah, I would also ask the audience, right? What do they think about 5G? And maybe we'll just let it sit there, and then I can tell a story based on the feedback, what we get out of the audience opinion of 5G, because it could go in many different directions. I'm curious to see what people think about it so far. From my perspective, it is so different from connectivity and prior network capabilities. So it is a different way of offering not only connectivity and bandwidth, but also a distributed cloud. So having computing power at the edge of the network is where we've been focused on discussing with telcos. Part of this 5G architecture is not just the higher bandwidths and the lower latency. It's the fact that the architecture includes compute power or servers placed at the edge of the telecoms network. So they call this the edge computing. SAP is working with some telecoms like Verizon and others to put our intelligence, little microservices that can operate at the edge, and then the telecoms can start delivering on that promise of intelligent connectivity. So I think their future is a lot to do with increased bandwidth, new applications for consumers like us, and immersive gaming and all the things we can imagine. Let's make sure we as humans control that, and we have our opinion on where it goes, because technology can do many great things. It could also start to control and monitor us in different ways. So let's make sure we're in that conversation. But on the business side, we see huge opportunities for us to help our end customers, our 440,000 customers, through telcos, be able to transition and transform to digital style, sooner and better with 5G.
Yep. So you were telling me a very interesting story about 5G. Can you share it with our audience as well?
Yeah, I was surprised. One of my team members was sending something on WhatsApp 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was about this article that 5G is involved somehow in allowing COVID to spread. That 5G technology, the microwaves can affect our immune systems, and COVID can take over more easily. And 5G is not that broadly deployed even to be, to say that that's true, because, it's in very small locations centered around some large business centers in some cities. But the idea that this is possible evidently took root. There are protests now. There are people protesting the technicians that are installing the antennas. They're trying to slow down this work because they're worried that it's increasing the power of the virus, right? Decreasing the power of our immune system. So I just couldn't believe it when I saw it. But then there are actual news articles and then actual people that are acting on their belief. So this world is a little bit on edge right now, right? To bring all these edges together, right? We're all trying to deal with this in our own way, but let's make sure science and thought, critical thinking, stays in the middle of this process, right? So
that's really funny, and I'm just thinking.
Well, it's funny and scary, but yes, yeah.
I'm thinking I've got this phone. This is 5G phone, and to get actually 5G network, I have to go to the city to actually get the network on. And does that mean that there are lots of people who are thinking at the moment that 5G is driving COVID?
Right. And you're going to the city to get COVID. I don't know what you're doing. What are you thinking about, right? There's different ways of critical thinking, I guess. We just we don't understand.
Absolutely.
But
okay.
Yeah. What's next?
That's interesting. So 5G will definitely be very helpful in driving the IoT discussion going forward, because I usually tell people when I talk about 5G and IoT, they go hand in hand. So self-driving cars won't work if there is no 5G, because there'll be no network, and there will be network droppages. And imagine a car which has to think on the edge to see whether to hit the person, whether that's a person or not, instead of reaching it out to the server when there is no network. Explain that. How will be the impact on all these new technologies and new things that are coming going forward?
Yeah, I think when you talk about IoT, you start to frame it as all of the intelligence at the edge. So a toaster will have a card, right? And it's connected to the network, a refrigerator. So one of the things with the 5G architecture is not just that server on the edge, it's also density. You can have 1 million connections per square kilometer. 1 million connections per square kilometer.
1 million connections.
That's the architecture. So that's so dramatically different, right? More than 10x the current network. So it's already built in, expecting not more mobile phones, but more connected devices. More connected devices driving huge sets of data. And where do you want to process that data? Do you want to bring it to some centralized cloud in Redmond or some location in a centralized cloud for a hyperscaler? Or do you want to process it at the edge? You've got to keep that data and understand the patterns in that data at the edge. So that's where SAP can help with video stream analytics. We can help with even action. Once you get the insight from the data near the action, you can start acting on it. You can repair, you can shut down the line, and manufacturing is one of the areas we're looking at. how do we transform digital supply chain, transportation, manufacturing on the shop floor? Because a lot of our manufacturing customers, they want to go to S4, they want to move to the cloud. We found that some of them want and need that capability inside the shop floor. So they can't move it off-prem. So we're actually working with them to put the microservices they require on the edge. That edge could be still on-prem, or it could be in the network, secure, available, shareable. So that's what 5G can do, is allow these new architectures, right? This distributed cloud, and how SAP can be broken down to support that. But IoT is the key driver, right? With all of that data, and then intelligence and insight and action.
So to the audience, you've got the right guy. He knows things about infrastructure, about architecture. So I think if you've got a question about 5G and architecture, this is the right platform to ask that question, because you can get the answer, not any fluff that most of us are used to doing. So you've got the right person out here. Okay. Before I get to the next question, again, guys, any question, please shoot now. So to you, Carl, what is the secret sauce for successful telcos? Where should they be prioritizing at the moment? And I've seen one of your articles on that as well. So please kindly enlighten us on that.
Yeah, I think, and we're seeing this at the board level, right? They're actually, even before COVID, before any of this, focusing on their own employees, right? Many telcos have been around for even 100 years, right? Any institution that's been around that long has a different workforce that has some older folks and some younger folks, and maybe the telcos have fewer and fewer of the youth in their operations. So they really need to transition all the knowledge work and the knowledge workers that they have and share that across the board. So making sure they understand their employees, what they need, the new employees they're bringing in, the experienced knowledge workers, how they scale that knowledge through remote working, video chats, et cetera. And so I think it's the employee base first, which is a surprising answer. Customers is second. It's crazy. I've been in the billing, the sales and customer support area with Convergys. That was a big part of what they did, billing systems, CRM systems, for at least 25 years in telco. And in the beginning, it was all about scale. I need to scale up to 1 million subscribers, 2 million subscribers, 10 million subscribers, 100 million subscribers. And now it's really about understanding the customer at scale and then supporting them at scale. And I think some of these telcos are trying and understanding their employees and their customers, but they really need tools and direction on really how to turn that into value for their business. So I think that's a key initiative. The second, we're mentioning 5G, network build out. There's been 3G, there's been 4G, 5G. As we talked about density, we achieved the 1 million connections per square kilometer, partly through the fact that we have a lot more antennas. There's a densification of equipment that has to be deployed. And then because it's so high bandwidth, all those antennas you might be putting on the side of buildings or on the top of telephone poles, right? You would be having fiber run all the way to each of those antennas. Because, yeah, they communicate with us over the air, but they have to get back somewhere to the central network to that server with the intelligence on it. And you need a fiber run to all these locations. That's a lot of construction work. So Verizon is using SAP to buy all of this equipment for 5G, huge amount of antennas, and help get all this fiber out to those antennas with contingent labor. So using field glass. So we've got some great references for customers that are building out this infrastructure using the power of SAP in our spend management, using the power of asset management. So it's a exciting time for us as we support them and their journey. I think telcos are going to spend over $1 trillion on 5G network rollout in the next 10 years. So we want to make sure they spend every dollar wisely and get it to capacity, not wasted effort. People running around, not being coordinated, not being, getting the best value for their spend. So that's our mission, I guess, is to help them get there as quickly and as cost effectively as possible.
So if you were to just mention three different areas that telcos are going to focus in the next few years to be successful, what would they be?
They need to transition, right, to software, because they've had more of a physical network. Now the network's more software controlled. That requires different operating characteristics and different skills inside the organization. So we call that software defined network. So I think software is a big part of their future, and how they operate. I think the biggest challenge, and I used to support the enterprise sales when I worked at Cincinnati Bell Telephone. I was a product manager with services that were being sold to large businesses like General Electric, to Procter and Gamble, and just big manufacturing companies with global operations. So we were selling and what they have been selling is much different than what they are going to be selling. Yep. With 5G, you're offering some of this intelligence at the edge of the network. What is the outcome of that? What is the value of that? How do you position that? What's the pricing for that, right? It's not just connectivity between 2 points that you could have as a commodity-based pricing almost. I need to get this number of bits from here to there. Well, this is different. It's almost a business outcome. I've got uptime on a factory floor at 99.99%. And I achieved that through some of the intelligence I put at the edge to process all that data. You didn't have to have a data center. You didn't have to have all this extra data. You know, we were able to do that for you, but how could a telco sales rep sell that? So the transition from selling connectivity to end-to-end solutions, business solutions, that's going to be an evolutionary step. They'll need partners, they'll need SAP, they'll need SIs to help them bridge that gap. But it's an important one. They have a role to play. It's not infrastructure, it's intelligent connectivity. So I think those are two of the key things. I think the customer is always evolving and always changing their expectation. And we've seen that with the online experiences, retail experiences, right? Customers aren't just working and engaging with the telephone company, they're engaging with every other supplier in the world. And that raises the bar. The telcos have got to stay at and potentially beat what others can do because they know more about us than anyone else does. They know where we are. They know so much of our habits and potentially, you know, things about us we don't want them to know. But the point being that they need to make sure they understand and serve that customer as best they can. So have the best network, okay, right? And so I think those are three key things. I'll throw on a fourth maybe is the difference with the future services will be the ecosystem. They need to work with different partners than they have in the past. And that requires a different skill set and mentality and approach as well. Being able to have a platform that engages partners differently, understand what they need, understand how to bring them in and compensate them. You need to have a different way to be able to pay commissions and percentage on the ultimate value delivered to the end customer. So it's interesting times.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here is an audience question as well. So in your point of view, audience, what is the secret sauce for success in for telcos in your point of view? So please share that in the comment section, and we'll share that with the wide audience as well.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Go on, Carl.
Well, I was just curious, maybe we could ask how many people love their telco provider today?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what happened last night? Last night, my network just blew up. It wasn't working. And I was so scared that I've got a live and I don't have the network. I don't know who I'm going to call. When are they going to show up? And, you know, I've got a morning show. So, yeah, it is very upsetting.
It's an essential service. It's an essential service. Yes.
Service, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Certainly when it doesn't work, it's just as frustrating as anything else, right? In the old days, the printer didn't work, you were frustrated, right? Now your internet doesn't work, you're down. Yeah.
Down, absolutely. Well, not only me, my children. My daughter came in, Daddy, internet is not working, my Netflix is off. The other one said she was playing Roblox. Daddy, my Roblox is not working, what do I do? So everyone is just hanging on to something.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've given up explaining. I'm not the IT guy here, right? I've given up explaining that. Well, you work in this industry, right? So you have to know a bit of everything, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Run
Okay.
your own land.
So what are the challenges that you see for telcos to be successful in the coming days? You've mentioned the secret sauce challenges.
Yeah, I think they're going to meet the challenge of scaling to the next requirements of the future in terms of bandwidth and connection. I think engineering and technology will meet that essential challenge of the future when we have more intelligence at the edge, more connected devices at the edge. So I'm less worried about that. I mentioned the piece about being able to support an end-to-end solution. I think that's a key challenge for them as they support enterprise customers. I think being open to an ecosystem that somehow delivers value to the end customer on the consumer side, but also allows them to take advantage of the value they deliver. So far, they've delivered a huge platform, and a lot of people have been able to monetize the end connection with the customers on the end of that platform. So how do they stay a little bit in the middle so they can be able to recoup the cost they've put into this future platform called 5G? So I think this balance of delivering the connectivity that we expect in its essential service, but also partnering with those that can deliver even incremental value, and immersive services and maybe security and safety. I think there's a big role that telcos can play because they do have that network. They do know who we are, the authentication, all of these things can be innate, embedded in the solution. So there's an opportunity for them to monetize that. They have to work with the right players and be open to make sure they're compensated so that they can get some benefit from it as well, and not just be a commodity player 10 years down the road. That would be the saddest outcome. Invest $1 trillion and make $1 trillion, right? Why not invest $1 trillion, make $3 trillion? Why not? I mean, it's the time.
So, well, we also said that there is $1.2 trillion market at the moment, the telecom industry. What's that survey about? Can you share some details about that?
Yeah, I think that was focused more on the enterprise side and how they can monetize their ability to deliver these services. And that's interesting as well. As I mentioned, selling connectivity, we're helping them with plays, sales plays or go-to-market plays around retail. We've worked with Deloitte on that. We've got IBM helping us in some areas. So we've got different big brand partners that are helping our customers and us understand what these industries need, what kind of use cases, what kind of functionality they need at the edge. When we talk about putting microservices at the edge, well, which ones? It should be driven by the market demand. It should be driven by those use cases that are required. So I think that's a big part of that 1.2 trillion. But there's so many other opportunities. You mentioned connected car. I think even when you talk about that, there's so much intelligence. We've worked with Harman. Harman does the dongles on the car, and they view that as an edge device. Because over time, it's small, right? It fits into it plugs into your car in a little way, but technology is such that it could have a lot of capacity. It could connect to the network, and it could have its own onboard diagnostics as well as its own onboard storage and data analytics. It could do a lot more for us at the car level, and that's where you need. If you're moving down the highway, you don't want to communicate with the network and come back to say, oh, someone's going to hit me. It's probably going to be car to car for 90% of these issues. The network can provide the overarching picture of, half a mile down the road, there's this issue all of you should be aware of, not the direct, I'm going to hit someone and need to change directions. So I think there's a role to play, and you've got to work out where to put the intelligence. Does it go on the edge at the device in the car, or does it go on the edge in some of these servers? Does it go in a central server? So that's part of the exciting architecture. You look at the future. Where do we put all of this? How do we operate as humans and machines in the future working together in many ways? Because a lot of this intelligence is bot driven and not that it's a scary thought. It's a way to augment, and what I look at is helping humanity, right? So we have to stay involved in that and make sure it does help us.
Absolutely. And I think I was talking to someone and said that in a car, and you mentioned the smart car or self-driving car, every component of the car will be connected separately, so it can work and drive properly. And so any issue that you have with the car, for example, even the tire, even the dashboard will have its own connectivity with the network, because you can afford it. With 5G, it will become so cheap, and it will be connected, so everything will be live.
It's possible, right? But those are things that are possible and doable, but are they necessary, right? Because at some point you get to even 1 million connections per square kilometer. If you have 1,000 connections for the 1,000 cars that are driving on that section of the highway, you've just used up your bandwidth, right? So I think at some point too, what you find in the software-defined network, you get to a point where humans can't really conceive or understand what's actually happening in the network. So we have to also make sure we have tools that can synthesize, collate, and present information in ways that we can see what's going on, at the detail level. A lot of automation down there, but what's the big picture? How do we reallocate resources to support that demand? But those are all interesting cases, right? When there's a need, it'll be ready to solve that need. Maybe it's 100 of those diagnostic components that will need to be monitored somewhere else, right? It could be offline too. In the evening, you send it to the manufacturer, right? That says, here's how the component performed today. Should we, update its diagnostics for updated software for tomorrow, right? So you could be doing a lot of that when bandwidth is low as well.
Yep. Perfect. Before I get to the next section, audiences, if you've got a question, please shoot in the comment section and we'll take each one of that. And mind it, Carl is up beyond midnight, so you better utilize that time well. Okay. So Carl, let's move on to the SAP section of it. How does SAP support customers in the telco sector? How do we help a customer? So can you just give us some details on, in the telco environment, what are we doing and how are we engaging with our customers?
Yeah, I think I kind of got into a little bit of this already when I mentioned Verizon, but there are customers that are using us for helping to build out this network, as I said, as efficiently as possible. Telcos, as we all know in this industry, the business that they've been in is more of a commodity business. So their revenue streams have been declining. They have to invest in 5G or else they may not have a business in the future. So they've got huge need for capital spend. They've got lower revenue streams coming in. So we help them understand that and spend wisely on building out all of those assets. So asset management's huge from a network perspective. The other piece that's interesting is the handsets. So even on the fixed or the mobile, whether it's a set-top box, routers in your home, we can manage that whole supply chain out to the customer. And then for the handsets, the same thing. Many customers use us with planning, with inventory, the distribution centers out in the network, all the way down to store level inventory of the handsets. And one of our big customers actually said, we're a fashion retailer. They sell handsets, but to them and maybe to us, right? This handset is a fashion accessory, right? It's a statement about us and what's important, right? So what can we do in our world? So and what color do we have? What image are we presenting? So I think our ability to help them with asset management is critical on the network as well as the customer side. I think the customer experience is something that we were adopting and kind of bringing into our own mindset last year, but now the telcos are really taking advantage of that. I don't know if you want me to talk about any customer stories as well, just to bring this to life?
We will come to it in a minute.
All right. So enterprise asset management, I think customer experience, billing. Billing is something that we have, and the way we do billing is different. Just we'll talk about. I guess it's the fact that we support 7 main industries. So SAP 25 industries, but for a billing application, we've got people like Microsoft and eBay and others that are using our billing platform, the same one that telcos can use. So if they think about their future services, they're not telco connectivity services. Their future services are anything we can imagine, this intelligent connectivity. How do you monetize that? So our platform is service agnostic. So I think the billing side's important. I think those are the big things. So experience management, the spend management within EAM, and then also the billing piece.
Okay. So you've mentioned all of those. Can you tell me how is our offering different from our competition?
I started that a little bit with the billing. The fact that we are service agnostic, and telcos, their future is not their past. So a lot of the billing providers today are only serving the telco industry. They're best in class at telco billing, but the future service offerings are not telco. So why would you go with someone and work with them to evolve into a future without knowing that they can handle it? Work with SAP. We already have a platform that supports 74 customers outside of telecom at scale, and we support many inside of telecom, 100 plus. So we're the right vendor because we're already supporting their future. We're not, having to build that for them, and time is of the essence. So that's the billing side. The enterprise asset management side, we really have taken SAP's core competency in manufacturing, supply chain, transportation. We built out a full life cycle for the asset. And the way we track that and what we call finance happens, this is something I picked up from the field earlier this year, that when an asset goes from inventory and it's put into production out in the field and it's turned on, activated for service, that life cycle, SAP can automatically update the valuation. We know where it's located. So what tax jurisdiction, what's the valuation of it as it depreciates? What's the status if it's in service, not in service, sitting in inventory? So all of those things happen just because it was moved, just because the status was changed. Financially, it's updated automatically. So I think the power of SAP at the detail where the work actually happens, the ability to automate some of those processes, be able to track all of these assets. If you're spending $1 trillion as an industry, you don't want to lose track of where all of that is. So our ability to do that's critical, and it's different from others. They can't get into that full life cycle. And experience management is just a whole new category that SAP has. So Verizon, right? One of their top 5 initiatives are employee sat and customer sat. So imagine the opportunities with them and this solution. And I think it came to life a little bit with COVID, right? Where we offered this pulse check. And you think about the pulse check was kind of a lot of people working from home. And a big part of it was your infrastructure, not just your laptop or computer, but your network, right? Are you ready to operate in today's world with video conferences and everything else? So what's the pulse check telling you is how people are adapting and technology. But we have a big customer in the UK. They deployed it for their 100,000 employees. In 48 hours, they had 20,000 people signed up. So the point that I'm making here is not the relevance, but it's the time at which SAP took to act with a free offering, right? That was relevant to the world in this situation. Here's this pulse check, figure out what's going on. So the time we could do that, the time they could implement, and the time which you could onboard 20,000 people in 48 hours. So yeah, that just says so much about the technology today that we live in, that we offer, and that our customers can take advantage of.
Brilliant. You know what? I must say one thing. I was hoping to finish this whole episode in 45 minutes. We are above 45-minute mark, almost there. And I still have 3 more questions. And then there are audience questions, which is huge. So this is very, very engaging, and I'm so excited to have you, Carl. And okay, let me quickly get to my questions so that we can take audience questions. Can you share any success stories and the business benefits that the telcos have achieved by implementing the technology that we offer to them? So if it is an end-to-end, that'll be great. Or if it is part, then it may be a couple of those. So please share these success stories.
Yeah. And I appreciate you reminding me of our time. You know, it's midnight. I feel like staying up till 2. So the idea was maybe we start with LinkNet. It's a win that we had from Indonesia, and they are a multi-play, quad play offering and to end customers. But they had a legacy environment for billing, and it was on Amdocs as one of the main providers. I think Amdocs gets around $3 billion in revenue, maybe $4 billion in the telco industry. So a very important, powerful player. But they were having difficulty evolving to these new services, and they wanted a change. So they went through an evaluation and picked SAP for the full billing platform, the full customer management, cloud solutions from SAP. So front office meets back office, and they're really excited about the opportunities that this open, flexible platform offers them. So I think that's an exciting one in the APJ region. I wanted to hit one that we just had in they're actually based in North America, but they have operations across 20 Latin American locations. I won't mention the customer name because it's a recent win, but it was over Salesforce.com. The sales cycle started at their big event. I don't know. I guess it's called Dreamforce in San Francisco, and maybe I'm being a little dismissive, but you know, Salesforce is a big player in telco for customer engagement, and we were excited to offer commerce as a value over their solution offerings. And one of the big things they mentioned was the industry team that we had and the industry capability. We've already built a telco accelerator on the commerce engine, and commerce was something they were looking at the end of last year. And with the COVID, they realized that their primary channel, the retail stores, are in jeopardy throughout Latin America. They need to get online and get online quick. So they couldn't go with a vendor that would take months and months and months to get ready for telco services, you know, bundling of products and services. It's complex. We've solved all that. We used a TM forum, a telemanagement forum data model, and we can support all of our products on that in commerce already through this accelerator. So COVID drove them really to pick the ready-to-run application, the one that's ready to run in telecom. So that's exciting. I mentioned British Telecom with this. They were on a journey with S4 HANA. They're doing a lot of things with planning. They're in the cloud with all the spend management. They're thinking about supply chain, enterprise asset management next. Verizon I mentioned. So I think I've hit all my geographies global. I want to make sure everybody's covered. I didn't get to the eastern part of Europe or Middle East, but we've got a lot of activity, a lot of interested people in our community. They're having those conversations with the customer, and we're really focused on delivering that value. So
I think we need to focus more on APJ as well to get more presence here as well in the telco industry.
We've got a great team and a great set of opportunity. Yes, we will focus more and we will accomplish more. Definitely.
Perfect. Good stuff. So finally, question from me: where do you see all this going? Where is the future? We mentioned 5G, we mentioned IoT, we mentioned cars, we mentioned all of that. I think my personal view, telco will have a backbone, will be the backbone for everything that we do in life. Even if we are playing Roblox, it will all work on network. But where do you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think you set it up well. I think it's important the role that telcos have. Imagine if there were one telco around the world, like one Facebook or one Google or one of anything, right? You want to have somehow this separated ability to support us and not control us. So I've mentioned human element a couple of times. So we all need to stay engaged in this important conversation that will set the future tone for how we live, how our children live and work in this world. So I think making sure that the technology is working for us is my main point. Where I see it going, it's something I said, I guess, last June or July, but I think it's this idea where we were talking about intelligent connectivity, intelligent enterprise. With intelligence, I see it as ambient intelligence. So if you think that just around anywhere you are at any point in time, whatever you want in terms of information and intelligence, right? Not just information, but insight, guidance. So this ambient intelligence is something you could tap into because we've mobilized the world. And we've now, with 5G, been able to put all of this intelligence at the edge. So how we make that intelligence work for us, in our personal lives, our work lives, et cetera, I think is the fun part of the next 10, 15 years, right? To make sure that, it's a warm, engaging, and exciting life that we can all lead, but it's powered somehow by this ambient. It's kind of out of the way. It's not in our face all the time. It's there when we need it.
Okay, perfect. Now I will throw that question to the audience as well. Finally, audience, what do you think about the future of telco, considering emerging technologies that are coming in? Please mention your point of view in the comment section and we will take it. And this is your last opportunity to ask questions to Carl, because now I'm going into the Q&A session, and suddenly I've seen a spike in people watching, because I think people know when I'm going to go get into the Q&A and we're going to talk to people about. So yes, so I've suddenly seen it going back to 20 and gone back to 30 now, so people know that we're coming up with questions.
That's great.
Take up. So final audience question, what do you think about the future of telco considering emerging technologies? Please put that in the comment section and I'll take that up. Questions from the audience, and that's the Q&A. I'll go one by one. I'll start with Facebook. The first question is from Alu Parthasarthi. Hi Alu, how are you? His question is, how do you resolve the revenue loss in telecommunications by SAP?
So I think the key that we talked about is our ability as a platform to support new and emerging services. So our billing platform, customer engagement platform is service agnostic. Companies like Verizon, they were already into a new business model around IoT we talked about earlier, but they have a whole division of Verizon is connected vehicles. So Verizon Connect has over $1 billion in revenue. They chose SAP for the back office. They chose SAP for the billing platform as well. So connectivity, is one thing at an infrastructure layer, but when you're providing connectivity to a fleet, then you can have additional data, analytics, the type of services you can imagine on top of that, and you need to have a flexible platform to manage that. So we see our future is enabling all these new revenue streams and new business models.
Okay, perfect. Alu, hopefully you've got your answer. Next comment is by Dayanand Naluri. Hi Dayanand, how are you? He just said hi to you, Carl.
I said hi, yeah.
Next comment is from Alu Parthasarthi again. He says, mainly in India, all telecommunication companies are facing losses. How SAP can help out them to overcome these losses?
Yeah, I actually was in India last August, I believe, to visit with Vodafone Idea. So they merged, and I know part of that reason for the merger was because of the great success that Reliance Jio have had. So Reliance Jio, and this is, not necessarily, I won't go too far, but they use SAP in a big way, right? They have said to some of us that the idea that they chose SAP and Samsung were some of the bestest choices they made as a company. But I think what we talked about with Vodafone Idea was this area that they've already got mobile edge computing devices deployed, like 60 or 70 around India. So they have this ability to have computing power at the edge of their network. Even though 5G is not available, you can run it on a 4G network. You can have these servers sitting out at the edge of your network already in 4G as you move to 5G. So we talked about, how do we get SAP Intelligence? How do we drive new services out to the edge? How do we serve their business customers differently? There are some angles we can play with them on the consumer side, but we're primarily a business company with 440,000 customers. We have Concur. We talked about maybe packaging Concur to help people as they go to the airport and be able to have a better flight, have a better experience as they're getting their transportation, getting flight changes, et cetera. Maybe there's a way that the telephone company and SAP could work together. So I think there's so many possibilities if you focus on the end customer, right, as to how we can offer help. And SAP has got a lot of capability, and the telcos have a lot of need to get creative as well. And I know that Vodafone Idea had some good partnerships. So they're one company that I would say is looking at an ecosystem and bringing in and engaging new partners in this future world. Okay.
Next comment is from Rajiv Shetty. He's saying, yes, aware about Mobile Congress. So, hi Rajiv, how are you? Next, we go back to Alu Parthasarthi. He's got a few. He's saying telecommunication business issue 1, mainly network issues, how SAP can help good network for all subscribers. And second, without retail shops, what are the solutions SAP can provide?
Yeah, I'll go with the second first, right? Because last year, one of our big initiatives was around retail because we had success. And then obviously this year, there's not a lot of activity in the retail store. But what SAP had already been working on is contactless stores. And our value prop, as I mentioned, was more the supply chain infrastructure of the handset all the way to the store. But ultimately, it's really about getting the right handset to the right consumer. Mm-hmm. So across any channel, whether that's online, call center, whatever, if you pick a plan, you pick a phone, this fashion accessory, we'll make sure you get it delivered how you want it best. So that's the second question. We still can do a lot with retail, with or without a lot of traffic in the store, right? It's still a commercial enterprise. Mm-hmm. The network issues, I think we're looking at many different things, including if we have a point of view on the right industries and use cases for 5G as an example, and we know which edge services belong at the edge, we could actually advise the telecom, the concentration in your city of these type of manufacturing operations is here. You should put 2 servers and you should have this capability on it to support the capability they will need with 5G. What kind of use cases and processes and IoT data analytics, and then, okay, in another city, you should put this type of capability. So being able to look in advance as to where the demand is, not from a connectivity perspective, but from a use case perspective, I think is again, a different mindset for a telco operator to think about. They rarely even take inputs from marketing as to, you can get good insights from where the new buildings, office buildings are being built or new neighborhoods are being built. That would be a demand view or pattern. But in this case, you're looking at, well, where are my high value use cases for businesses? Where should I put this intelligence at the edge, and which intelligence should I put at which edge? So I think SAP is now much more relevant in those conversations. We're not network engineers, but we're going to help them deploy the intelligence.
Absolutely. And I think there was a story around back here in Australia where we had a problem with the network of a particular organization, particular service provider. I'm not going to name them, where they were moving from 3G to 4G at that time. This was a few years ago, and they lost a whole lot of customers because they didn't plan accordingly. They didn't plan where they've got many customers and where they've got less customers. They just went in and started upgrading their network suddenly without without understanding where your most customers live and how you would, slowly roll out and slowly make changes, and that was a disaster for that company. But anyways,
Yeah, and think so real quick on that. Think about what we know about how difficult it is to transform, right? So moving from ECC to S4, moving from any technology platform to another. So there's a lot of empathy that we've gathered over the years in our experience, and that's going to be more and more important for the telcos to understand. As they get into these higher value services, there's more of a friction to move. There's also more value to move, but you got to take care of each move, right? How do you scale to each customer to make sure they get the best experience? So back to Qualtrics and experience management, I think to manage these new products and services, which ones are most relevant, as well as that transition period. How do you get those customers to their promised land in a positive way?
Okay, last question from Facebook, and that happens to be from Alu as well. He's been very, very engaging. Alu, this is your last question. Everything is digitization by mobile, or digitized by mobile. What are security aspects that will help from SAP in telecom business?
Yeah, we're working with different telcos. They have a lot of security as well because it's inside of their network, and they're very focused on delivering a secure connection. So they have ability to go in the stream, things that we don't really do, right? To interrogate that stream and understand the secure aspects of that. So how we work together is really, I think, rather than saying take SAP's mobile security of old and put it on your platform and operate it at the edge, it's more of a melding of security to get access to the cloud, access to the distributed cloud that we talked about, because there's a whole nother layer of potential threat if you have a server out at the edge of the network. So it's up to the telco to make sure their environment's secure. It's up to us to make sure our business functions are operating securely in the end-to-end. But that's something that I don't have a clear answer. It's got to be something we work out together, and it involves capability from the telcos, capability from SAP, and depending on that use case, how distributed that use case is, on-prem, inside the server, and in the central cloud.
Okay, let's quickly jump on.
Thanks, Alu, for all the good questions.
Yeah, Alu, thank you very much for all the questions. As he said, it was very detailed. Actually, he's actually thought through the questions before putting them there.
Yeah.
So, which is good. Very, very quickly going to YouTube. I've got one question on YouTube, and that's from one of our colleagues, Dr. Nicolidis. I think you know him. If you do, he's asking, how do you see the role of concepts like federated machine learning, processing streams at the edge, and then integrating into the intelligent enterprise over 5G telco infrastructure?
Yeah, it's true that you have to be federated because most large operations are in multiple locations. It's not one big campus, right? We're working with some companies in Germany, and they have large campuses where they do their construction. But to be relevant, you have to have the broadest set of data. So you have to have the machine learning as close to possible to where the operations are happening, detect the patterns, but also look at patterns at a group level when needed. So the idea of federated is important. Edge is important. That whole architecture, how you work that out, is partly an engineering exercise from the company. Where do I deploy my processing? It's partly SAP involved in architecting that from a application perspective. To be intelligent as an enterprise, you need to interpret that data across the different locations and then act on it. And that's what we want to get, is to action as near as where we detect the issue as possible, as near as where we detect the pattern as possible. If it's not an issue to resolve, it's something that we need to do either way to take an action. So our architecture is distributed microservices where they're needed to operate. We're also thinking of VMware. I think they have, from a technology, this whole distributed architecture quite well in hand. So we've been talking with them as part of a 5G council as well, how they might be involved along with Dell. They provide the servers, the actual equipment. So I think there's a lot to that answer, but you're right in the heart of how we're going to solve these big problems in the near future.
Perfect. I have quite a few questions on LinkedIn, and I'll very quickly go there. The only challenge I have is that I will have to read the questions because there is still no integration between LinkedIn and the software I'm using. So the first question is from Sharon Shetty. Hi Sharon, how are you? And he's saying, what are the next digital frontiers for the telecom industry to crack?
So I think immersive, the experience that you can offer technicians or people, gaming, certainly that's going to be once 5G is out there and monetized. But where I'm really focused is bridging the gap between SAP and our 440,000 customers across these 25 industries. How do we bring those together with telcos? What are those use cases? So future manufacturing, smart manufacturing from an industry perspective is key. Retail, we talked about retail experiences, but I think the ability, whether you're in a store or even at home, to have visualization, immersive experiences will be a part of our retail future. And transportation, ability to act and react quickly. We talked about driverless cars and other autonomous driving. So I think those are the three big use cases we're kind of looking at from a B2B perspective.
Okay. The next question is from Mark Reed, and he's saying, I'm about to start negotiating with potential telco partners that will be given access to sell their telco and data services through our mobile applications. I would like to know how the commission structure and agency agreement should be negotiated in our favor. And I think this is a question you should take offline. I'm not sure whether you want to answer that question.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the middle of your negotiation, but I will say, as you're already doing, right, you're starting with what's the end service? What is the network of partners to deliver value to that service? And I think it's going to be so difficult in the future world if you've got 1,000 different vendors providing microservice services on an edge computing platform inside a telco. Maybe 5 of those are involved in the first scenario and a different constellation of 50 are involved in the next scenario. But all together, they deliver an outcome that the business customer actually pays a service for. So they pay monthly, and you've got anywhere from 5 to 50 to 100 players involved in delivering that value. So how you work that out has to be value-based, and it's part of an ecosystem, and it starts with the end pricing in mind, because you can't get this bottoms up. My service is worth $2 and mine's worth 30 cents, and the customer's only willing to pay $1, right, per month. So I think the one thing I'll say a little bit like a commercial is, since I can't help you with the actual negotiation, the interesting part about SAP billing is that we do at scale all of the receivables, so all of the invoicing and revenue, but we also do payables. It's an ARAP platform. And in telco, most billing platforms are just the revenue. They've just focused on, I've got 50 million subscribers, I've got 5 billion transactions per day, I've got to figure out all these usage transactions, what's the value of that, and get it on an invoice every month. That's all I can handle. But what we do is we look at those revenue streams, we put a commission, if you're paying a vendor per that transaction, a royalty fee or commission fee, we'll track that expense at the detail record and have a payable statement based on all of those details. So you should check our system. It scales to the billion subscriber level. So pretty important to be able to handle ARAP together.
Okay, and he continues and he says, Mark, we have kiosks in airports with interface for telco services to be paid or topped us.
Yeah, that's an important strategy, and I think a lot of when we get back to traveling, right, there'll be people visiting the Olympics, right, in Japan, and they'll want to be able to get some network capacity, and maybe you could offer services inside of that chip that gives them access to hotel discounts or maybe access to restaurants that they should take a look at, whatever other experiences you want them to be aware of and exposed to. So you can have add-on applications and services, not just the connectivity embedded in that micro service, that kiosk that you offer it to. So I think you're in an exciting, flexible space that you could add a lot of new value-added services that are not telco, traditional telco services. So I think that's a important part of the future. You've got to pick which areas are going to be open for business as soon as possible.
And I think it's a good place to be, because these are things that are interacting or interfacing with the customer directly, and you can do a lot of, not only do the user interaction, but also do a lot of analysis on the run to make that experience really personalized. And I think that is going to be a game changer in the coming days or so.
Yeah, and I think technology will evolve too, right? Are we really doing chips in the future? We just hold our device up to the kiosk and it will upload, download, whichever, and you move on with your game, right? So I think that's an essential service, and it's just like having pop machines or something, soda machines everywhere. So you're just getting your essential service when you need it, and you can add some value to that on top. So I think that's exciting.
Well, one of the use cases that comes to mind, which I delivered a few years ago, was when you go to a kiosk and you just put in your Twitter handle, it will go through your Twitter handle and tell you what are the kind of products that you may want to buy in that mall.
Wow.
And also
so relevant to you right there. Some immediate advertising. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely. And also during Christmas, people like you, what kind of products are they buying for giving gifts? So
you could guess based on the kiosk location in an airport, right, where they're coming from, right? If it's an international terminal, where you're nearby. So you could do some basic guessing, but once you know that person, you can really get specific. So
absolutely. Okay. The next question is from Seng Hui So. He is the regional sales leader for APAC, and he's very regular on this show. He's saying 5G network edge computing for enterprise and consumers with contention ratio in mind. How can telco ensure fair usage policy?
Yeah, I think the bandwidth, the ability to slice is giving the telcos the ability to charge more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's fair, right? So it gets into what is fair use. So as we're talking about, there's this opportunity to monetize the investment they're making, mm-hmm. and maximize, hopefully, their for-profit enterprise. So they need to maximize that profit based on the investment they're making. It's a big risk to invest $1 trillion. So the fair use side of it, making sure that we all have access, I think is partly governments, local, state, federal, they're all helping to make sure that internet is accessible to all, because it is an essential service. So I don't know that the telcos need to play the front line of defense in that ambition, but the fair use policy is something to be cited by the regulated side of their organization, and I think there will be contention, but for now it's based on network slicing, and make sure that the high priority apps get the most bandwidth, the most or the least latency in response to that bandwidth. So I think if you think about it from a perspective of apps that relate to healthcare and monitoring my health, I want to make sure that if I've got a pacemaker and someone's monitoring my heart, if I have a defibrillation or some kind of event, I want to make sure the hospital or someone knows about it immediately. I don't want to be in that line of contention. So you're going to need to prioritize some of these events and the actions associated with it. So I think the telcos will do that based on money first, and potentially, service second to the humanity.
Okay. Hi, Seng. Hopefully you've got your answer. I will take a couple more comments from Seng. He says, agree with Carl on maximizing investment, currently commodities. He also mentioned IPv6. He said big data forensic for next telco services. And finally, he's mentioned optimize bandwidth resource to 100%. So he's mentioned a few comments, and that's how it is. So saying hopefully,
I think, I would just say that the network's evolving. The engineers want to help. I've worked with some engineers where they have policy to upgrade the network when it hits 80% at 80% max throughput at a peak time, and that's when you augment and add capacity. So I think that'll change. We'll start looking at profitability even. Is this antenna used by my most profitable subscribers? And that's a dimension we haven't looked at before. We're usually providing ubiquitous service for everybody, but sometimes you can figure out this antenna is really high value to me as a company. I need to put 3 or 4 here to make sure that my highest value customers don't have a contention, don't have any bandwidth issues ever, right? So I might upgrade their towers at 60% throughput at max, right, at peak. So I think we can adjust slightly to how we engineer the network and how we upgrade our capacity. We can do that with an eye towards serving our best customers best.
Okay. Singh, hopefully you've got your answers. Next comment is from Harrison Hunt, and Harrison is account manager at the Mark Edward Agency, and he's saying node application for 5G, and that's a question mark. Anything you want to comment on that, Carl?
Just load application.
Node application.
Node application. Yeah, I don't know what to add to that. I just know about us putting intelligence and edge services from SAP in terms of operating the network more effectively, node by node, and efficiency across. We have some data analytics where we've looked at contention, and we can predict when the contention will occur at different nodes in the network. But it's just an analytics game. It's a predictive game. It's not necessarily something we want to get into network administration or network management. We just want to offer the intelligence at the edge, give advice about where the best place to put the edge is, and that's where we see our role.
Okay.
Hope that helps. Sorry.
If you had described your question better, we would have taken that. Well, he also said, Harrison Hunt has said that on record, this might just be the most interesting live stream I've been in during isolation.
Well, thank you for that, and it's been fun for me. Certainly, I really appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate Shailendra, you driving this conversation. So really enjoyed it.
I'll tell you one thing before I get to the last question, which I have to take, and I'll tell you why. But I must tell you that when I have 3 or 4 guests, that's when I hit 1 hour, 15 minutes and more, sometimes 1:30. This is the first time I've had only 1 guest, and I'm 1 hour and 18 minutes still going. So, and it is engaging, and I know it's midnight for you, and I'm just keeping you, but this is engaging, and I think the audience is also very excited and to hear from you. So why not take the time off? The last question I will take is from Rahul Singh. Rahul Singh is the head of marketing for SAP India, and he's asked a question. He says, in markets like India, ARPU has fallen significantly over the years due to competitive pressures. Voice is virtually free and data is dirt cheap. How can telco reinvent themselves?
Yeah, and I mentioned Geo, right? It's almost a Geo effect, right? They did some smart things with the service offering, going with 4G from the beginning, making sure that they got the price of that handset.
Hello, we've lost Carl. Have we lost Carl? No. You there, Carl?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, you want to start again? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just mentioning the Geo effect. And then as they've evolved, right, they had their own handset, a very feature-rich but basic, right, from a cost perspective. So how they met the market at the right price point was impressive, right, to control all of that. And now with Facebook, I think taking an investment, it's going to be I think you can see where things are going in terms of intelligence, community, how the network is not just the connectivity from a physical perspective, but with Facebook, it's connectivity as family, as people, as community. So how do telcos evolve? Well, they start to think about ways to serve their customers and ways to serve what their customers want to achieve. And we're ready to help in a lot of cases with the enterprise side, and in some cases with the consumer side. But that's India. I've been there 3 times in my life, and I've always just it's unbridled optimism with the youth. Right, there's so much opportunity and so much potential. So I'm excited about whatever future India imagines, but it's got to be powered by this technology and how it connects and makes it more efficient, right? Because over time, it has to get more and more and more and more efficient, right? Because it's crazy what's possible. But I don't know from an India specific, right? Other than these ways that Jio finds to serve their customers. The reason they selected SAP back in the beginning is interesting, maybe to this point, was they picked us because we supported telco, and we supported media, and we supported entertainment, and we supported, right, all of these industries from an engagement perspective, from an ability to bill for services, ability to engage with customers. So they saw their future not as making money off the connectivity, but engaging with their customers, supporting them, and then maybe it's banking services, maybe it's these media and social services, maybe it's everything else with smart cities. So I think as the society evolves, certainly you guys and telcos can be there to support the society.
Perfect. You know what? Long time ago when Jio came into existence and everything was free suddenly, my background is telco as well. I started my career with the telco in India. So everyone started reaching out to me and saying, well, do you understand what is he doing? Why is he doing so? I said to him, this is called Uberization of telco. So I wrote an article on that, which I think went to Reliance Jio as well, because they wanted to review what I was doing. But that was my background, bringing in to say, why would Jio make everything free of cost? Because what I said to them was, they're not going to charge from the customer. They're going to build a business across your telco business is going to move from B to C to B to B.
Yeah.
And suddenly everything will be free. And when I wrote that article, this was 4 or 5 years ago, it then had a follow-on effect in Australia when everything, I remember when I came to Australia, a call, they used to say, if you pick up a mobile phone and call, why are you doing that? Take a landline and call.
Yeah.
Because a mobile call was very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today, it is free. It's virtually free. And that's what even Rahul said. It is free across. Jio made sure that that Vodafone and Idea and all the other Airtels had to bring the cost down so much then that they didn't even think about that.
Yeah, their end game was different, right? And then if you have a platform that accesses 450 million subscribers, then you could probably find a way to monetize that, right? There are add-on value-added services you could offer on top, right? So it's been interesting to watch them, but it's interesting to watch how others are trying to compete with that, because it's a juggernaut. It's very powerful.
Yep. Okay. 2 more comments and one message from one of my good friends, so I'll take that. One comment from Angelo Koulos, a very good mate of mine, says, great conversation, guys. And Harrison Hunt, the question we answered, says, thank you both. Finally, I should have gone off, but Lorraine Longato, who is another SAP colleague of ours, is asked, of Facebook activity tracking and information gathering is amazing. This is intelligence in action.
Excellent. And this is what we're trying to do, right? As we learn how to engage with the industry and market differently. As I mentioned in the beginning, we don't have our events, these traditional ways of connecting with our customers and our partners. And now we can reach out to you this way. So I really appreciate the opportunity, Slindra. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Carl. It was a pleasure having you on the show. We're 1 hour 25 minutes. It is by far the longest show I've had with one person, and it was very engaging. And your questions, you were so articulate. I think people enjoyed it very much. I think my feeling is we had more than 1,000 people watching us live, which is huge for one individual show. Thank you very much, and really appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
So that was Carl Kehres, the Global Vice President for Telco. Amazing show, guys. You rocked it. The questions were amazing. Alu and others, you guys were so good asking those questions, and they were very detailed questions. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presence. Anyone who's watching this show on LinkedIn, please follow me so that you can get alerts for the next show. All those people who are on Twitter, please follow me. You will get the show again. For YouTube viewers, if you're watching this show on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel so that whenever I go live, you will get an alert to watch the video and any other video that I upload. I go live twice a week, and I try to go live twice a week, and also upload other videos on YouTube. So please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you are. Please keep safe. Thank you very much for watching us, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Bye now.